Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. For the record, it's October 20th, 2022, and the time is 6:30 p.m. Council, when I call your name, please say here or present. Mayor Maxton.
Here.
Councilmember Stroop.
Here.
Elizondo.
Here.
Bliss.
Here.
Kerner.
Here.
Parker.
Here.
And Menchow.
Present.
With 7 members of council present, a quorum is declared.
Thank you, Christina. And would everybody please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
and thank you. We are live broadcasting tonight's meeting. First of all, thank you everybody for coming tonight. If anybody would like to speak as part of the meeting tonight, I'd ask that you use the microphone. I have a problem with my cord. Use the microphone up here. That's so that it can be captured over the live streaming and also as part of our recording. And for any residents that want to speak tonight, as you take the microphone, I would ask that you state your name and whether or not you're a Fair Oaks Ranch resident or not.
Got a mark.
And with that, we'll move on to citizens to be heard. And we had one individual sign up tonight, Barry Brower.
Yes, Barry Brower. I'm a resident of 39 years at Fair Oaks Ranch. So I see on there that I'm only allowed 5 minutes. My presentation takes 10 minutes. I don't know if I'll be allowed that extra 5 or not. But anyway, in order of transparency, I want you to know that I know the mayor quite well. So we played a lot of golf together, so.
My money.
Yeah, right. After all these years out here, first of all, how many of you on the council are aware of Aqua Hawk?
Probably all.
Oh, how many of you use Aqua Hawk? Well, I am a new user of Aqua Hawk because of using, for the month of September, 330,000 gallons of water. Yeah. We leave for the summer for going out west, and due to the fact that I was unaware of Aqua Hawk, I started getting some calls in early part of September, and because the calls were being generated out of Colorado, I didn't pay much attention to them. And then finally I answered one and it said, you have excessive water use. Well, for the month of September, I used on average 12,000 gallons of water per day. I had my neighbors check, I had my irrigation people check, and my daughter comes in and checks the house every week while we're gone. And yet we couldn't find what the source was. I returned on Tuesday of this week, and my first order of business was to find out what was going on. By the way, at the end of September, I had the water turned off completely to the house. So when I returned, I turned the water back on to see what was going on. And again, there was nothing around the house that I noticed. So I went into the house, and sure enough, in the master bath, the toilet had, the flapper valve had ceased to make contact, and as a result, that water ran constantly for 30 days. As a result, my September water bill showed up to the tune of $15,000. And of that, water usage was billed at $6,700. My surcharge was $8,245.50. So I'm not denying that the water was used, but I am requesting a variance, if you will, I will be filing a appeal, thank you, to pass on the surcharge. I mind paying the bill in total, and I have worked out something with the utility office thus far, but I will be appealing that. After reading the chapter of ordinance, chapter 13, in particular, chapter 13.03-014, it talks about the penalties of surcharges. There's nothing in there to prorate the surcharge. There's nothing in there to say how that should be resolved other than making an appeal for the surcharge. So one of the things I think needs to be done is that the ordinance itself, which is dated March of 13, probably needs to be looked at in total and reviewed to see, because of the growth out here in Fair Oaks, we certainly need to keep abreast of what's going on. So, number one, I think that I would suggest, and by the way, in case you're not aware, the Fair Oaks water bill that you do get, at the bottom of it, it talks about Aquahawk. I never looked at that, obviously. I wasn't aware of it till I talked to Kelly a while back. So I would suggest that at least once a quarter, perhaps, a card is placed into the water bill. Just make people aware of Aquahawk, because I understand I'm not the first person that's had excessive water use. The last thing I'd ask, since I can't ask for forgiveness, I'm just going to sit down and thank you for your time.
Well, Barry, thank you for being here tonight, and thank you for your information. As we discussed, we can't deliberate, but we do have your information, and it is something that we can take and consider at a future time. So thank you. Next, we'll move on to presentations. And tonight we have a presentation from the Bernie Independent School District, and Rich Senna's here to make a presentation. Reference the City of Fair Oaks Ranch Chartwell Realignment Project.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. It's a pleasure to be here, and just wanted to say thank you again for continued collaboration between Bernie Independent School District and the City of Fair Oaks Ranch to promote safety in the community and with our school children. And on a separate note, I was at a PTO meeting recently at Van Robb Elementary, and there were about 30 parents in there, and the topic was safety. Our safety coordinator, our chief of security, Rick Goodrich, came and made a presentation. And there were about 5 students at Van Robb in the audience, and our SRO was there, Officer Downey, and they all raised their hands because they wanted, Rick Goodrich to know how much they loved their SRO. And I understand the same thing is true with Officer Solis at Fair Oaks Ranch Elementary. You're nodding your head, you have children there, so that's good to hear. So thanks again for that. And with me tonight is Mark Stahl, who's our Director of Construction and Planning, and I think he's actually got the nice little thing here.
Good evening. Thanks for having us. It's refreshing anytime you can collaborate with a municipality, whether it's Fair Oaks or the few other ones we deal with. And we just, from the bottom of our heart, appreciate all the collaboration between the school district and the city of Fair Oaks Ranch. So on behalf of Bernie ISD, we'd like to present you with this check tonight for funding safety enhancements and improvements.
How about if we stand up here? And it does say to the City of Fair Oaks Ranch, but I believe what y'all made was a contribution to the project for the Chartwell realignment. It's a pleasure. Thank y'all for coming tonight.
Good to see you.
We gonna keep this? Yes, sir. Oh, wow. And y'all are welcome to stay.
Another event.
With that, we'll move on to our consent agenda. Tonight, we have one item on the consent agenda, which is the approval of the October 6th, 2022 regular city council meeting minutes. Is there any reason that, or is there any council member that would like to pull this from consent and put it into consideration and discussion? And with that, could I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Michelle?
Second.
And all in favor of approval of the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The consent agenda is approved. And with that, we'll move on to our consideration and discussion item tonight, which is the consideration and the possible action regarding an update on the city's Civic Center project. And I'll turn it over to Tobin to kick this off.
I think Mayor, Councilmember Kerner wants to, it's her agenda item.
I can kick it off, but thank you for putting this on the agenda. I wanted to have a discussion among council about where we want to move forward with the Civic Center. As you know, we have a grant that's a reimbursement grant that's already approved by the MDD for $600,000. That will expire at the end of September. So, and in order to get that reimbursement grant, we need to have had a certificate of occupancy. So based off of our current timeline, though we have budget for the Civic Center this year, I can't see that we're going to have a certificate of occupancy by the end of September. So I'm asking that we consider what do we want to do moving forward. We had an initial estimate several years ago, but as you know, the construction costs have changed. So I'm going to maybe ask Tobin to give us a little bit of history because not everyone on council was here when we started this project. But at the end, what I'm going to ask is we can give direction to Tobin on where we want to head. How I would like to see it is maybe we can agree on the overall square footage of the facility so that we can get a good estimate so we can understand how much we would potentially want to amend our MDD at a grant request. At minimum, we have to extend it. But if I suspect it'll cost more than our original estimate of $600K. So we'll probably need to at least come up with a proposal, well, at least have Tobin give us a new estimate and then come up with a proposal of what we want to go to the MDD for. I have awareness of the MDD project budget, so I know there is significant money available, more than $600K. But again, that's reimbursement, so if we choose as a council to spend more and not get all of it reimbursed, we could do that as well. So with that, Tobin, do you mind giving a quick history of how we got here and what we know and don't know?
No, thank you,
Thanks.
Councilmember Kerner. So by way of background, prior to COVID in 2019, we were looking to remodel City Hall that's currently ongoing, and we were also going to remodel the former police building that's sitting out there. And so we went out a couple times for bids on a traditional design bid build project, and the police building was going to be used for office space, primarily for finance and HR. Those bids came in both times extremely high. We couldn't afford the project. So then COVID hit and we kind of put everything on hold. So from COVID to current, in February of 2020, we brought an item to the city council asking if we could change the delivery method to try and get within budget from a value engineering perspective. And the council gave us approval to utilize what's called construction manager at risk. And the difference between that is design, bid, build is exactly what it says. You design it, you bid it, and then you build. Construction manager at risk, you develop architectural plans up to about 30% or so. you hire a contractor who helps estimate the rest of the build-out and gives you a guaranteed maximum price. And then if they go over, they eat it. If they're under, we get money back. And so we went that route, but unfortunately, prices kept escalating by the time they tried to give us a guaranteed max price, and the ultimate bid came in at $1.8 million just for the Civic Center alone, and we didn't have that budget. Kind of got ahead of myself here. So that was in February. April of 2020, the council hired studio architects to help us design up to the 30%. In July, we were authorized by council to submit an application to the MDD for the $600,000, and the application was performance-based, meaning that the city did not receive any monies until we delivered the building and a certificate of occupancy. And one of the riders that was put on that grant was that it expires in September of 2023. Now, we could always go to the MDD and ask for an extension. We could revise the grant, let it expire, and apply for a new grant. August of 20, the MDD did award that grant, and then, as I said, it expires in September of 23. April of 2021 is when we got to the point where we realized that under the construction manager risk, the best we could do is $1.8 million as the building was being designed. So we started value engineering on the staff side, and we were trying to cut $1 million out of the budget, and it got to the point where it was basically just 4 walls and a roof. And so we came to council, and council allowed us to just set that building aside and concentrate on the City Hall remodel, which is about to enter phase 3. So that's where we're at tonight. The main purpose of the community center was for a community gathering space, meeting space, not only for citizens, HOAs, but for council meetings, boards and commissions, any special event that someone in our community might want to have, 50th wedding anniversary, all of those things. One of the newest drivers that is coming to us has to do with elections. As you know, we're in 3 counties, so holding elections in our community is awfully difficult. We have recently been informed that the May 2023, if not sooner, but we think it's May 2023, will be the last election that the school district will allow on their campus. And that has to do with, the environment, active shooters and everything. So churches, schools, no one is really wanting their facilities to be used for future elections, and we don't have any other facilities here in town other than maybe the club or somewhere else like that. And I know the mayor's working on some committees trying to resolve those issues, but this building could be used for our local elections, which would be really, really nice customer service for our citizens. They wouldn't have to leave the city to vote. So with that being said, we're looking for direction tonight. I don't know what the budget's going to be. Previously, we had scoped out a 3,000 to 4,000 square foot building. Talking to some contractors here recently, and I think prices are coming down and continue to trickle down, but best estimate right now is $300 plus per square foot. So anywhere from 300 to 400 plus minus square feet. Just for construction grade building. Now that also includes not just the bricks and mortars, but also the site work that has to be done. And in our budget, as you know, that was recently approved, right now is earmarked $412,000 plus or minus dollars. We could use some of that to fully develop the plans if that's what council wants to do, and then we can come back as staff with another strategy. Do we want to do design bid build, or do we want to try construction manager at risk? Fortunately, there's some folks in the community that have reached out that are subject matter experts in construction, so we're, depending on what kind of direction we get from council tonight, I look forward to meeting with those individuals and helping us and me as the team reel this in a little bit so we can come to council maybe with a tighter budget in the future. But the main takeaway is, do we want to proceed with the project? And if so, I respectfully request council let us know.
Thank you, Tobin. And I'll just take the liberty to ask my first question. So what would be the best course of action from staff that you would think to move forward with this project? What would you need? What type of direction would you like from us so you can move forward?
Really, I need a couple things. Do you have, if you have a desire to move forward, if we could talk a little bit about tonight of the functionality of the building, right? The previous plans, we were going to have a big council chamber or meeting space that had an accordion divider, so that was going to be available as 2 rooms, and then there were 2 breakout conference rooms and a kitchen in case someone wanted to do some catering. that would allow several different meetings to go on at once. We've also heard over the last year that our municipal court is looking for additional facilities. So if we want to put something to do with court, we need to vet that and decide, can that be done in the 3,000 to 4,000 square feet, or do we need to add a little bit onto that? So if we can get some direction from council on the functionality of the building, square footage wise, that would be great. And then maybe takeaway 2 would be staff go ahead and start developing plans or strategies and come back to us with an RFQ for design bid build or construction manager at risk. I can't tell you which is the best right now, but I need to spend some time with some of the volunteers that are looking to help us.
Thank you, Tobin.
Any other questions from council?
Yeah. So, Tobin, my question also kind of relates to what you hit on, functionality. So, as near as I can do arithmetic at this time of night, that's about 3 years or so since we originally conceived of the purpose of that building and a high-level design that would meet the needs requirements that were identified at that time. You've rattled off a couple of new items, which is be able to facilitate elections, possible use of it for court space. And I guess, one of the things I'm kind of wondering, now that we've seen, pretty much how the old city hall redo is going to form out and everything, have we kind of been tracking a list of needs for this, part of the city campus, this site for all the needs there? Because it seems like we're going to run out of footprint to work with, and it would make sense to really take another hard look at all the opportunities that might drive kind of the interior design of that space, whether that be 4,000 square feet or whatever, to be sure we're accommodating as much as we can out of that list of needs. So one of the things I would like to see leading up to the RFQ is to have a refresh on what are the requirements that we would want to get out of this building. And I think, that could drive some things. When you mentioned court, that typical commercial building construction costs could change because of some things. We might have to do some additional upgrades on, security items and those kinds of things. So I think that would be helpful.
Anybody else?
Question.
Go ahead.
So when you're talking about additional needs for court, you're not talking about moving the court over there. You're talking about maybe conference rooms for them to
Could be all of the above. As the judge has explained it, and she hasn't been involved at this part of the conversation, so I would welcome, hearing additional ideas from her. But certainly secure space for the court staff and secure space for the judge when she's here doing her paperwork and then coming and going on our monthly court meetings from a security perspective. So it could be either, Councilmember Bliss. This room, as great as it is, from a security perspective, does not set up well for court. There's no emergency ingress, egress, and the judge and everybody's to some degree up there isolated.
So if we have, because the security update type stuff is expensive, more so than a regular build, right? So would it be something, I'm kind of thinking out loud right now. So would it be something where we move them over here and maybe this becomes council chambers?
Again, that's up to you guys. This room is heavily used for police training and other training facilities. So I would encourage and recommend that we look for another option for council chambers.
Okay. I do like the idea of, having places for community groups to meet and HOAs and stuff like that, like you said.
So, I think it's difficult. It seems like we kind of have right now, a pie in the sky look at this. It's hard for me to say, yes, I'm completely for all of these things without having an idea of what exactly it is that we're looking to do. I like the idea of having a place for elections, like we've talked about, council chambers, things like that. But I think, as others have expressed, moving the court over there can get, given the security presentation we just received, can get extremely expensive. So I can't, I guess, give the complete, hey, I'm for all of these things until we know exactly, okay, what is it that we really want to do? So I think personally, I think it's a great idea that we put this on our agenda and we're talking about it, and I think it would be really awesome for you guys to come back and give us, just so much more of a, not even high level, but just so much more detail for us to be able to make a decision. I don't need a cost, but here's where we think, yes, we think court should go there. No, we don't. Here's our ideas, et cetera. And I know you're doing that, so I would definitely be in favor with moving forward to get more information, personally. So
Keep exploring, right?
yeah.
I would be interested in the cost. So, I mean, and maybe have, plan A, plan B, plan A, all the things and the total cost. Plan B, all the things minus court. And what is that difference really? Because, I mean, that's going to be one of the big expenses, is all the security stuff there. And I know we have court security funds that can assist with that, but it's not that significant, so.
As I recall, there wasn't much in the court security fund to meet the needs. So, and I really think we really need a little more definition on what we want to use this building for, because it'll get out of control pretty quickly. Definitely need it, but I need more input on what we're actually looking to build it for. And multi-use is good. I like the idea of being able to, close down bigger rooms into smaller rooms, but I need some more details, please.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So to kind of address some of the comments, just historical, it was originally, like Tobin had mentioned, we were looking at it for other office space. But then it became obvious that it would be better just to have all the office space in the City Hall renovation, which then meant our city council chambers disappear. So regardless of what other things we do in that center, the intention was that's where we're going to move council permanently. This was intended to be a temporary situation because of it's a training room and it's used for other things. And in fact, I know we all talked about it when we were talking about the live streaming, is ensuring that whatever we put in that center would support live streaming of council. The other driver here to consider is we converted and moved into that idea of a civic center from just a council chamber to a civic center, because that is something that fits within the MDD project capability. So the MDD is not going to just fund any building in the city. It has to be some civic purpose, and that's where we're like, hey, we're only going to use it for council chambers a few times a month and potentially other meetings. It could be used for the citizens the rest of the time, potentially for elections, which is how we then converted it to a civic center, which allowed us to then apply to the MDD. So whatever we start talking about, keep in mind that civic center use is a key portion of this if we want to continue with MDD funding. So we can add on or whatever, but just keep that in mind. And again, it doesn't have to be all of it reimbursed by the MDD. It could just be a portion of it. And the MDD may not want to use their entire project fund on this as well. So just kind of keep that in mind. But I am concerned that if we just keep on deciding every idea that comes to our head and how long it's going to take us to build this, we're really going to get nowhere. And it's already been 4 years. How long are we going to have council here? It is a very limiting location, personal opinion, so.
I have a question for Laura. So timing-wise, this thing runs out in September.
Yes.
So, or is the best way to just leave it be till we get more information about what we want to use it for? So then we can either decide to amend it or extend it? Or do we want to extend it? It's still, 10 months, 11 months?
Right, so having an approved grant by the MDD means we move that money into an allocated fund, which means the MDD will not use it for any other project. If we let the grant expire, then it's available and the MDD could choose to do a different project and spend the money. And then if you do come back, there may be no money left. So
Yeah, but it's not until September of next year, so we have some
September,
time.
yeah, well, September of next year is less than a year, so.
Right.
We have some time, but it will require, we only meet once a quarter with the MDD.
Okay, that's good to know.
So we only meet once a quarter, and if, we typically probably won't vote on something the first time we see it. So you have to keep in mind that we need some time as an MDD to meet on it.
So basically, we have about 3 months to decide
But
what.
that's why it's on the agenda.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay, gotcha.
Okay.
Justin?
Just another question for Laura. So if we give the direction to staff, tell us what we, aside from the Civic idea, obviously we need that, what we can do and move forward with getting a high-level budget, at least at that point, we, in theory, should be able to go to the MDD in a few months and give it two meeting cycles. Is that?
I think so. I think, and Tobin, correct me if I'm wrong, as long as we can give him a square foot range, even if we don't figure out everything we're doing within that square foot range, we could then get a construction estimate within a ballpark that we could at least adjust, look at for budgeting purposes and for grant purposes. Of course, it's going to be plus or minus a percentage,
If we don't need it for the additional office spaces that we were originally, we do have some play in that original square foot, or is that?
I think they removed the office space when they did their original estimate. By the time we went to CMAR, we had already moved the office space. It's really just, it's meeting rooms. It's like one big large room and then meeting rooms on the side.
So then I guess the only other thing, aside from, for voting and all those things that we would need to decide, it seems like, is this idea of adding the court to it? Is that?
That's correct, and I
Okay.
haven't heard outside of this meeting any formal requests by any staff members or court officials that they actually want to move the
Move there.
court. I've heard it incidentally,
Yeah.
but I haven't heard them present a request for that formally in any way.
We can look at certain things that we were doing in the CMAR, we can revisit those. And an example is when the current city hall was built, it was built one story, but framed for 2 stories, and the foundation was established to carry the weight or the load of a second story, which was added on years later. We could do the same thing. That's what we were looking at in the CMAR, is to make sure the slab and the base work was designed to have a second floor, but had it gone forward, it was going to be unfinished.
So we could give the direction to move forward as originally proposed, and then at least at that point get a budget and start the ball rolling if we want to extend it or request more funds.
I believe so. I think that would be probably the quickest way to move forward. I mean, just kind of hearing what Tobin was saying, original was looking at 3,000 to 4,000 square feet, and he said he's estimating about 300 per square feet. So right that, it's like a 900K to 1.2 million.
Yep.
And our current grant is 600. And the MDD currently has, I think, $2 million in our project fund.
I wouldn't be opposed to making that suggestion, I guess, to move forward that way.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to add, something to keep in mind, and this is in line with what Laura's saying, is that the MDD approval of that grant was also based on some qualitative factors relating to the use of the building and how it was going to contribute value to the community. So any significant changes in that would need to be revisited. And as far as timeline, I wouldn't want to compress it this much, but I think if you were to give the MDD, a minimum of 60 days to process any changes to that proposal, that could be worked through. Probably will require some special meetings on their part, but I would not go below 60 days. So if you want to look at that as a drop-dead date to either file for an extension or an amendment to that grant proposal, I would kind of keep that timeline in mind.
And I'll add, I'm sorry, Mayor, I'll add on to that, is we typically approve the MDD budget at the July MDD meeting, and then it gets sent to City Council for approval so that it could be approved by September. So it would be ideal if we have before that July meeting, so we could budget it within our MDD budget and definitely set aside that dollars. If it's more, that would be ideal, because then we wouldn't have to go back and do a budget amendment and then bring it back to council for approval again.
Good point.
What I'm hearing overall is everybody's interested in moving forward.
Yes.
Okay. And Tobin, from you really became to function, we had capabilities that were laid out with functions that were already designed for it. Roy had good points. If we, looking at this now, are there other areas of function that we wanted to consider as part of it? And you brought up the court piece. What do you need, or how do we move forward so that we can get to that level of what are the required or needed or considered functions that we would put as part of the Civic Center?
I guess what would make me comfortable if you could, as a council, make a motion and direct me to go ahead and continue to spend energy and level of effort on this. And what I'll do is again, meet with some contractors and try and reel in budgets. I have a good understanding of the square footage, probably about the same, 4,000 square feet. And then staff and I and some folks will try and vet a plan A and a plan B, similar to what Councilmember Stroop said. Of course, we're going to come back with high-level numbers because we won't know the budget until we bid it out. That's unfortunately how, public projects work. But let's see if we can get it tightened up, including a strategy for developing the plans, because remember, we don't have fully developed plans at this point for the Civic Center. They're only 30-40% done.
So for clarification, I just want to understand that what we're talking about, y'all would revisit the needs assessment, come up with some options there, that would be a precursor to us authorizing hiring a design firm to flesh that out. Is that kind of the process?
Yes, sir. It's a good summary.
Okay, so do we need a motion, or do we just need to have consensus that that's an approach to moving forward?
You don't have to take formal action. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page and aligned.
My belief is the direction is enough, that what we've talked about is part of council. But I'd like to clarify a little bit on, what is going to be done between now and the next time it's brought to council. So that, because some of what Roy mentioned, I think to me were further steps down the road.
Well, I think it's an important early part of this as well, to do the needs assessment, and then I'll start framing next steps. I may need to, within the limits of what I'm allowed to spend for professional services, retain some services to help advance the plans a little bit, at least to get to the point where there's some functionality and renderings that you can take a look at. Minimal.
I think, I don't think we need a motion for him to move forward. I think us budgeting money for this project in our budget was the motion for you to move forward with this project. So I would like to see that, those two options that you had talked about, even if you have to use some of the budget that we've already budgeted for to get us those details, I'd like to see that.
And I can come back just as quick as possible, hopefully in November, December at the latest, with bullet point strategy, 3-4 point next steps.
Okay.
That work?
When do you think you can come back and give us an update after this meeting?
That's what I was saying. November, December. Let me see how quick I can work on it.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I can't mandate when the contractors can mobilize and visit. They're all pretty busy, but we'll do our best to put some level of effort on it.
Okay.
And based on that, any concerns from anybody else? Everybody's comfortable?
Yep.
The direction?
So
It would be nice, if I can get my work done and to have some real direction, leading into the Christmas holiday, so when we come out of it, we're actually moving forward. Ball's in my court.
Okay. Just so I understand, so the direction that Tobin's going to take is he's going to move forward to get a little bit further in the design, potentially look at two options, one of with the court, one without the court, with the current functionality we had already talked about. And then with those two options, give us a better estimate of the costs. So then from there, we would look at those options and decide what we want to do from it. Is that what I understand? Okay.
Reed Tobin?
Yes, sir. Yes.
The only clarification I would add, Laura, is that I would like to make sure that the staff, if there isn't some other need that's sitting out there, that we gather that into, so that could also be looked at in addition to the court. I just want to make sure that this is fitting into a master plan for this campus.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Anything else, Laura?
No, thank you, everyone.
And we've added workshop items to our agenda. And for clarification, I guess, a workshop is an opportunity, really just what we did on the Civic Center, to bring up a topic and discuss it as a council on giving ideas. There's no decision that would be made as part of this, really just direction or concept of how we view things. And so the next item is the workshop. It's a workshop to discuss and frame the first town hall meeting that we're looking at conducting. And since it is our first one, I think we're looking for concept from council on what we believe would be the best way to conduct a town hall meeting. To tee it up pretty well, or?
Sure, that's wonderful. The primary topic that I believe the consensus of council, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, is to do the Q1 on transportation. Generally, what I've been hearing is a room setup similar to this, with council leading the discussion and presenting the primary topics, and staff being available from a technical support perspective. But it's really your town hall meeting to engage with the community, and we can have easels and maps and everything set up. But just from a timing perspective, Christina's been looking for facilities. We think we can get the Cibolo Creek Church in their big auditorium either December 5th or December 12th. And so if those dates work for you, that would be nice to hear tonight so that we can go ahead and lock those in, and then looking for direction on the framework.
Mayor, Mr. Mayor.
Roy?
So I guess I heard what you said, Tobin, and that I think that's an approach. When I thought about this, we talk all the time. There's people on the cameras looking at us, and we're talking, and all they can do is listen. And if I had to come up with a concept for a town hall, it would be a lot like what we did when we were trying to do the visioning for the city and develop the inputs from the citizens on the comprehensive plan. So if I had to encapsulate a theme for this thing, it would be we're all ears. And I would like, it's just my view of it, to see a forum where we do more listening than talking, and find some way to do that. There's all sorts of topics, and I'm agnostic on which topic, as long as we're doing more listening than talking if it's a town hall.
Anybody else? Chesley?
I agree somewhat with Roy that we want to do a lot of listening, definitely, for sure. But I also think just having done the few not coffees with council that are, not to this scale, obviously, people wanted us as council members to be prepared to be able to answer their questions. So I think it needs to be more, not a presentation, but what I would call a conversation, so that they feel open and able to ask their questions, but we're also able to answer back with having the detailed information, as well as just if they have questions specifically for staff. So I would consider it more of a conversation. So I would say that. And on the date, I am absolutely not available on the 5th of December, personally.
Laura?
I have a question for our city attorney. Sorry to make you put the headset on. So because all of council intends to be there, and we're going to be discussing, not just listening, is that what drive, we need to set some topics on there so that it's just not come and say whatever you think day?
Yeah, so
Okay.
you will need to have some general topics. It will be it's a special called meeting. It's still a meeting of the council, so. But
Okay, so-
you do need to list topics, yes.
Okay, so basically just say, we can't just say, we can listen, we'll say, hey, the main topic is transportation. If they come in and start talking about, I don't know, taxes, we'll say, hey, unfortunately, we can't discuss that. We'll be glad to hear your opinion, but we can't discuss that because it's not on the agenda, or?
Right, so other cities that have done similar meetings, yeah, they will have an overarching topic, and it will, like, let's say if it's transportation, and it said, and it will kind of have bullet points, including and not limited to, and it'll have like some hot button transportation issues listed, so folks kind of get a better idea as to what those conversations are going to be. I mean, you can have multiple topics, but I think it's a good idea to try to focus it down for each one.
Thank you, appreciate that. And Roy, I agree with you, listening more. I mean, people want to, maybe we could tee up the conversation and say, hey, here is the transportation plan, here's this, these are the projects we're working on, high level, but without like a 50-page PowerPoint presentation, maybe just like a 2 PowerPoint presentation, and then, and then listen to their comments.
Yeah, where I've seen it done, when we were doing the comp plan, and I've seen TxDOT do this when they were interested in talking to people, they would do stations, and you'd go station to station, and there'd be some SMEs at each station to answer questions, to get into conversations and answer questions. But it moved around like that, and it created a good environment for people to give their feedback and input. And that's, versus us just doing a bunch of PowerPoints and hopefully bringing a lot of coffee to keep people awake. I think that's a format that works good for a town hall.
And I'm sorry, I'm just going to respond. I like that idea, but I also would like to kind of drive those questions that come to council, a lot more than to staff, so that, they feel like we're the people to come to when they say, why did we choose this? And why did we do that? Staff can explain what the plan is, but they didn't make the decision to do it, right? So I would like, even if we have stations that have the information available, I would like there still be a time where they're literally asking us questions and we're addressing them.
Anybody else? My thoughts on it, when you're having a town hall meeting, when you look at communications, communications should be a two-way street. So we do a lot of communications from the city to our residents. This is an opportunity to get the two-way feedback portion where we hear from our residents. So I agree with the part that I think a major portion of this should be opened up to address questions. I do agree also it should be focused in a manner, and Tobin mentioned the presentations from council. If we're doing small presentations, my preference would be that would come from the city staff and some expert that has the information. And then when questions come up with that from those after the presentation, the questions would be addressed to council. And if there was an opportunity where we didn't have the full information to answer that, staff would be there to help us with any technical information that we may not have. Kind of my thoughts on, and I agree with what Laura and Roy were saying, especially the presentation should be, to me, short and to the point. I think when you listed it out here, maybe a 5-10 minute, no more than 15-minute presentation where we take and we hit the important points that would resonate with our residents and provide them the opportunity then to provide feedback on what we've identified as those important points. And they may raise up some other points that we may not have identified, but I think that's good. I think that's the feedback that we are looking for.
You get ideas for the next town hall?
Well, and I'm thinking back to some of the town halls. One, the CPS town hall they did, the town hall we did with the, dare I say, elevated storage tank. And it was kind of, there was a small portion where there was a presentation, but then there was also tables set up, because some people don't come exactly at the beginning. They may not see the 5-minute presentation, but they may come in, look at tables that are set up that, with diagrams, and then all of a sudden have a question and want to jump in. So I think there should be that combination of two, like static displays, if you will, and a presentation for people who want to hear the presentation. Because then, then they'll feel like they're part of it. They don't walk into a room of, they missed the presentation, they're just listening to random questions, and they feel like they can't be engaged. At least they can catch up by looking at some of the static displays, or we could point them to it. It's right there on that thing over there,
Well, I agree. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Dan.
I was just going to interject. I have a city that does a similar event. It's not really a town hall. It's called Council on the Go,
Oh,
where
that's
but the way they do it is kind of like what you're talking about. But they go out to locations within their city quarterly, and they hold a special council meeting. But what they do is, in that city, each department, they have tables set up all around the location where department heads are available to discuss about it's a come and go for the first 30 to 45 minutes where people can just interact with staff. Then there's a set agenda that starts after that, and the topics are different at each Council on the Go. So it's kind of a combination of what y'all are talking about. And it seems to work pretty well.
Maybe they could sign up for Aquahawk.
And regroup at the
And
same time.
regroup, and regroup, and all the things that you have to actively sign up for.
Well, I like the idea of also having the table setups for residents to go and ask specific questions. And Laura brought up some good points. And another point for me is you may have some residents that don't want to speak up in front of a large group. If we had 50 or 60 people, but they would be comfortable going to a table and talking to an individual one-on-one. And really, my belief is our purpose in this is to get the information, the feedback from residents. And so if there's a large group format to provide that in, or a small group in a one-on-one, the purpose is to get the feedback and however we can do it. So setting up both to me is a good idea.
I really liked what Dan said about the Council on the Go. I guess, wonder, what do you think will drive more residents in if we say Council on the Go, or if we say Town Hall? Because I think our residents are more engaged at Town Halls. Like, if we say it's kind of a Council on the Go, they may go, I don't want to go to council meeting. I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to figure out what our residents would prefer to see. We've had great turnout for town halls. So I don't know what you guys think.
I just wanted to throw two more, because I think you hit a great point, Greg, because people interact different ways. They have different preferences. And even having something, and I've seen this at the tech stop meetings, is write your stuff down and just leave it for us to look at. But also, not everybody can get to these, events and stuff. And we may want to consider, I know I'm adding a lot of scope here on staff, but we may want to consider having some, and I'm using this term a little loosely, virtual form of that, where the stuff is out there and there's a web input for them that they can provide. If they have something to say about transportation, I couldn't get to the meeting, but I can still fill out an input sheet and send it, and it goes into the pool of data that we collect from the town hall event.
Excuse me, Mayor.
ma'am.
There was also a question on whether we wanted this to be streamed, because there's a potential for that if they hire someone.
Smaller format,
Go ahead.
a smaller format, that might be pretty difficult to do with all the different tables and.
They know.
Just the main portion, if we were to follow suggestion or the example that Dan provided, where staff is there first and then whatever council is prepared to discuss that particular night, that section could be streamed if you were interested. I just wanted to
would-
throw it out there so you were aware of the
All right, go ahead,
possibility.
Chelsea.
I was just going to say, I think that might make it a bit difficult, but something we could do is if we can set up a recorder. I know when we did the ribbon cutting, they were recording it, and it maybe post it after, that so people could watch it if they wanted to, but I think live streaming it would be difficult.
Agree.
As you were presenting it, I was thinking through, I mean, the process, how we did go through and set up, because we're trying to do this at the Cibolo Creek Community Church. And then how would we get in there to do live streaming? What are the capabilities that they have? What would we have to bring? I just don't have all those answers. I think it's a great idea, especially, you know, if you put in what Roy had. I mean, you could have an opportunity for people to do messages, chat. They could chat in information. But I just don't know the extent of what it would take to make that happen.
When we did the water discussion at Cibolo, they did record that, and we did post it on the city website. And I guess that's kind of what I'm thinking
Okay.
similarly.
And I think the record is an option. I don't think that's very difficult. The challenge to me with recording it and posting it is it's after the fact, and you know, people can still provide feedback based on that at a later time. I mean, they just send it to the city staff or to any of the council members, but it's not real time at the time information was being presented. So it may be a little delayed, but I'd be all for the recording piece of that too.
Got it?
Did I hear correctly, Councilmember Menchow, you said you were not available on the 5th?
Won't be available. Abby's having surgery, so.
So would we be interested in the 12th?
I'm free on the 12th. I don't.
Yeah,
I need-
the dates are to be determined. We picked those dates. We were trying to get past the Thanksgiving holiday, but do it before, you know, people exited for the Christmas holidays.
I'll need,
Seeing the Cibolo Creek Church, those were the 2 dates that they had available
got it.
for December.
I'll need to look at my husband's calendar and get back to you. I don't have access to it on the phone.
I'm good with
But
the
we'll send
12th.
an
I'm good
email
with the 12th.
reminder of the dates. If y'all can just look in the next week or so and let us know, that'd be great.
Got everything you need, Tobin?
Yes, sir, I believe so. We'll continue to shape and frame, and I'll share with you as we move along. And just give you briefs.
All right. Any other questions? From there, we move on to announcements. Any announcements from any of the council members? Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to mention, we had well, I have personally, and had a lot of calls and texts about the light that, at Fair Oaks Parkway and Ralph Fair. And so I wanted everybody to know that we have contacted TxDOT, and they are going to come out and try to recalibrate the light and at least take a look at it and see if something's going on. It's been a hot topic. They're out there right now. So we saw it, we heard it. I think probably everybody received calls and texts, and so we're on it and working on it. So
Thanks, Chief, and thanks, Chesley. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Trunk or treat next Saturday, Chief. Right? Police Department.
Here at
It was
City
a
Hall.
great success last year. Kids loved it. Next Saturday, right? Am I right?
What time?
6 to 8.
And I just want to say, even if you don't have a kid, it's a blast to just come and watch.
Anybody else? And the only, I'll add the same two that I've talked about in previous. We are under stage 2 water restrictions. I would ask that everybody watch water. We did have a good rain event earlier this week. Hopefully that will recharge some of the aquifers that our wells pump water out of. But it is a serious situation that we need to take with the consideration of how we're using the water, especially in our irrigation systems across the city.
Could I just add to that? You know, today NOAA has been publicizing their long-range forecast, and this is supposed to be a drier than normal winter. I don't think that we're going to get much relief until late in 2023 at the earliest, based on the long-term climate forecast. So it is really important.
It's possible we may continue the drought through the fall and winter months. Thanks, Roy, for the enlightening
I don't
news.
think we'll need to take any action. presentation out because we're looking for direction on our.
The second piece is just to highlight our Regroup system. We talked about it, we brought it up earlier. Regroup is our new emergency notification system. It's that opportunity, if there is an emergency going on across the city, allows the city staff to make those quick calls or messages to residents to provide information on what the emergency is, how the emergency is being handled, and any actions that are needed by residents. So it's very important that we get our residents to sign up for this. We have had a number that did sign up. For those that have signed up and are aware of it, I'm asking our residents to please tell their fellow residents, their neighbors about the system so we can continue to get individuals to sign up. Tobin, anything else?
Yes, Mayor and Council, I'd have a couple announcements. I'll have Christina pull up the first picture. Some very good news here. These are 5 of our employees that are out at an event tonight accepting on behalf of the city. We were awarded again this year the top workplace, or one of the top workplaces in San Antonio. So this is something we take great pride in. Level. This is done by a third-party organization that the staff answers questions based solely on, and the results are based solely on employee feedback. So this is a significant sign of the culture that we've created. We did miss out last year, but this is the 4th year that we've won, 2018, 19, 20, and 22. And again, so tonight we have Maria, Summer, Officer Ojeda, and Rachel and Jennifer up at Toff Golf. That's where the event is, and they're accepting the award, and we'll bring the trophy in next week. Again, this is something at the staff level we take great pride in because it's recognition that it's a tremendous honor and accomplishments, because it's a testament to the type of organizations that our employees have built and that they enjoy working with each other each and every day in that sandbox that I call the Fair Oaks Ranch sandbox. So we really appreciate the council's support. It's nice to be back on this list. The second picture is, I don't get bragging rights around City Hall very often, and so I want to pull up a picture here. We had a chili cook-off last week at City Hall, and
just give me a moment, please.
yours truly, we did it, it was totally anonymous, so this is the first time the city manager has won anything, because when it's the city manager's name up there, they tend to not vote for anything I do. They say my wife is the one who submits things, so this year we did an anonymous chili cook-off, and you'll see the nice championship belt that the staff gave me as the winner. So just want to show the bragging rights. Come on, Christina.
I'm sorry, Tobin.
See? See? Purpose.
I can only pull it up
Super small, Tobin, there it is.
There it is.
It's there.
You know,
I'm
so
having
yours truly
challenges
in the middle
getting
with
the size sent.
with the championship belt, and we had 2 Public Works employees that came in a distant second and third. So game on for next year, but I think I'm going to retire, so the belt will always be mine.
I think council needs to be invited
Yes.
to participate.
You didn't even give us the chance.
Yeah, well.
Here we go.
Well, the other
Employees
thing,
were the
It's a little
judges, but it was a
blurry.
nice staff event to boost morale and have
The
everybody
other comment
have
I
a little
had-
fun at the office every once in a while.
the comment I had is, it looks like the belt was sized for the lieutenant.
I certainly have good posture when I wear it. But anyway, we appreciate the support that the council gives us to allow us to have little events like this. Again, it really, really helps staff morale.
That's fun.
That's all I have, Mayor.
Thanks, Tobin. Is there any council member that has an item that they'd like placed on a future agenda? All right. And we do have a quick executive session tonight. Pursuant to Section 551.101 of the Open Meetings Act, the Texas Government Code, a quorum of the governing body hereby convenes into closed session. This will be a reference Section 551.072, which is deliberation regarding real property. The City Council will meet in closed session to deliberate the purchase, the exchange, lease, or value of real property that may be considered for future TxDOT improvements to FM 3351. And I have the time now is 7:34, and we are moving into executive session.
Yes, sir.
Christine, I have the time now is 8:13, and we are back in open session. There was nothing that was discussed during our executive session that required action back in open session. Christine, is there anything else that we need
Yes, sir.
for tonight? We've got everything. All right. And Tobin, anything else?
No, Mayor.
All right. Then I have the time now is still 8:13, and we are adjourned.